Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, while turning on my TV, I noticed that it was having a signal problem. Even after switching through many different channels, the screen displayed nothing except the message, "No signal." To find out what was wrong, I checked the back of the TV. As you can see, the TV wasn't connected to any antenna, which explains why it couldn't receive any broadcast signal. Just then, I found an old digital TV receiver sitting nearby. Instead of throwing it away, I decided to reuse it to build a simple TV antenna and see whether it could bring the TV signal back. First, I removed the screws from the four corners of the digital TV receiver to open the case and inspect the components inside. After removing the outer cover, I noticed that most of the internal components are quite old and no longer very useful. However, the signal cable is still in good condition and can be reused for this project. So, I route the main signal cable out through the case to make the following assembly steps more convenient. I put the screws back into their original positions and tighten them with a screwdriver. Every like and subscription motivates me to create more creative DIY projects. Thank you so much for your support. In the next step, I cut off the shared connector joining the two small wires, so they become two separate wires. After that, I strip a short section of insulation from the end of each wire to expose the copper conductor. This prepares the wires for the next connection step and helps ensure a stable and reliable electrical connection. In the next step, I'll use a power plug as the connector for the antenna. First, I disassemble the plug to make the wiring process easier. Then, I connect the two wires from the digital TV receiver to the two metal terminals inside the plug and tighten them with a screwdriver. This keeps the wires firmly secured, ensures stable electrical contact, and makes the antenna connection more reliable. After completing the wiring, I reassemble the plug to protect the connections and keep everything neat. Next, I'll use an HDMI cable as the signal cable for the digital TV receiver. First, I strip a short section of the cable's outer insulation. Inside, there are many small wires with different colors. I sort the wires and separate the ones that won't be used to make the wiring process easier. Then, I cut off the wires that are not covered with blue insulation, keeping only the ones needed for the next step. Next, I remove the blue insulation from the remaining wires to expose the copper conductors. After that, I strip the ends of each wire to prepare them for the connection. Then, I twist the 3 white wires together into a single bundle to form one common conductor. I twist all the remaining wires together into another bundle. Grouping multiple wires together increases the conductor's cross-sectional area, creates a stronger connection. In the next step, I'll use a battery as the signal receiving element for the antenna. First, I use a soldering iron and solder to create 2 solder joints on the battery terminals. This provides secure and reliable connection points for the wires. Next, I solder the bundle of 3 white wires from the HDMI cable to the positive terminal of the battery. Then, I solder the remaining wire bundle to the negative terminal of the battery, completing the wiring. This connection allows the received signal to be carried from the receiving element to the digital TV receiver through the HDMI cable. Next, I apply hot glue and attach the battery securely to the top of the digital TV receiver. This keeps the receiving element firmly in place during use. I connect the HDMI cable to the HDMI port on the digital TV receiver, completing the assembly and preparing the system for signal testing. Next, I'll use a TV coaxial cable to connect the antenna to the TV. First, I strip a short section of the cable's outer insulation to expose the inner conductor. This prepares the cable for installing the connector and helps ensure stable signal transmission. Next, I attach a TV coax connector to the cable. This connector allows the cable to plug directly into the TV's antenna input, making the installation simple and convenient. Then, I wrap electrical tape around the connection to keep it secure and protect the exposed contact from becoming loose or short-circuiting during use. I repeat the same process on the other end of the cable to create the second connector. After that, I use a female plug as an intermediate connector between the cable and the antenna. First, I disassemble the female plug. Next, I connect the 2 cable wires to the 2 metal terminals inside the plug and tighten them with a screwdriver to ensure a firm connection and stable signal transmission. Once the wiring is complete, I reassemble the plug. This female plug serves as a quick connector between the signal cable and the antenna, making it easy to connect, disconnect, or replace the antenna whenever needed. Finally, I plug the antenna into the female connector on the signal cable. At this point, the entire connection system between the antenna, the digital TV receiver, and the TV is complete. Now it's time to test the homemade antenna and see whether it can successfully receive TV signals. First, I'll switch to a TV channel to check the signal reception without connecting the antenna. As you can see, without the antenna connected, the TV only displays the message, no signal. Next, I'll connect the DIY antenna to the signal input on the back of the TV for the actual test. And here is the result. Almost immediately after connecting the antenna, the TV channels begin to appear. The picture is clear, the colors remain stable, and there are no continuous signal interruptions. To make the test more convincing, I'll perform one more experiment. I disconnect the antenna from the TV and observe the signal changes. As soon as the antenna is unplugged, the screen instantly returns to the no signal message. All channels disappear, confirming that the signal truly came from this homemade antenna. Now, I'll reconnect the antenna once again. As you can see, within just a few seconds, the channels reappear and continue working normally. This proves that many electronic parts that seem to have only one purpose can be reused in completely different and surprisingly useful ways. Not only does this save money, but it also opens the door to many more exciting DIY ideas. If you enjoyed this project or found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates me to continue creating more repair, recycling, and DIY projects in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.